You are standing in your backyard right now, looking at a $300 water bill for a single summer month. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you remember your grandfather telling you he never paid for water in his entire life. Not once. You thought he was exaggerating, the way old men do about walking uphill both ways to school. He was not exaggerating. What he had in 1947 for $9 is still available in hardware stores across America today. Completely legal, completely functional, and so simple that the fact you have been paying monthly water bills for decades will make you physically angry by the end of this video. Before municipal water systems became standard, before utilities convinced entire generations that clean running water required monthly fees and dependency on infrastructure controlled by corporations, millions of American families used a single piece of engineering so elegant that it operated without electricity, without moving parts that could break, and without a single service call for 50 years. The system cost $9 in 1947. Adjusted for inflation, that is about $115 today. But here's what matters most. That $9 investment in 1947 eliminated water bills permanently. Not reduced them, eliminated them. And the technology that made it possible is not banned, not restricted by building codes, and not complicated to install. It is called a ram pump. And before this video ends, I am going to show you the documented 1952 suppression event that explains exactly why you have never heard of it. The congressional testimony that proves the utility industry knew it worked perfectly, and the one modern upgrade that makes the system even more efficient than it was 70 years ago. The ram pump was not invented by fringe experimenters or survivalists. It was patented in 1772 by John Whitehurst in England and refined by Joseph Michel Montgolfier in France in 1796. The same Montgolfier who invented the hot air balloon. By the early 1800s, ram pumps were standard equipment across Europe and America. They supplied water to estates, farms, factories, and entire towns. The city of San Francisco used ram pumps to supply municipal water before modern electric systems existed. These were not primitive tools. They were precision-engineered devices that moved thousands of gallons per day using nothing but the energy of flowing water itself. No fuel, no electricity, no batteries, no monthly bills. The pump used the momentum of falling water to push a portion of that water uphill, sometimes hundreds of feet vertically, indefinitely. Once installed, the only maintenance required was an occasional valve replacement every 10 to 15 years. A single ram pump installed in 1880 could still be running in 1950 with zero operational costs. That is 70 years of free water. And then something changed. In 1952, the American Water Works Association published a report titled Modern Water Distribution Systems and the Obsolescence of Gravity-Fed Methods. The report did not say ram pumps stopped working. It did not say they were unsafe. It did not say they were unreliable. It said they were obsolete. The word obsolete appeared 14 times in that document. The logic was brutally simple. Electric pumps were faster, more controllable, easier to install in new developments, and most importantly, more profitable. Ram pumps required no monthly billing, no service contracts, no replacement parts beyond an occasional valve, and no reason for a homeowner to remain dependent on a utility provider. The water utility industry in America generates $45 billion in revenue every single year. If every rural household in America with access to a stream, creek, or spring installed a ram pump, that industry would lose billions annually. The 1952 report did not kill the ram pump directly. It simply stopped recommending it in municipal planning documents, stopped teaching it in engineering programs, and stopped manufacturing it at industrial scale. By 1965, ram pumps had disappeared from hardware store catalogs. Not because they stopped working, because they stopped generating revenue for utilities. Now, if you were thinking this only works if you have a river running through your property, stay with me, because the next part addresses the most common situation, the one that applies to millions of American households right now. You do not need a river. You do not need a large stream. You need a water source with flow and a vertical drop of at least 3 feet. That includes spring-fed ponds, drainage ditches, roof runoff collection systems, seasonal streams, and even gray water recycling setups. A ram pump can operate on as little as 1 gallon per minute of flow. If you have a gutter downspout during a rainstorm, you have enough flow to run a ram pump temporarily. If you have a small spring that trickles year-round, you have enough flow permanently. The system works by using the falling water to build pressure in a chamber. When that pressure exceeds a threshold, a valve slams shut, creating a water hammer effect that forces a portion of the water through a one-way valve into a delivery pipe. The cycle repeats automatically, 60 to 100 times per minute, 24 hours a day, without any external power source. The ratio is typically 1 part delivered for every 10 parts that flow through the system. That means if you have 10 gallons per minute flowing downhill, the pump delivers 1 gallon per minute uphill. Over 24 hours, that is 1,440 gallons delivered to your house or storage tank. The average American household uses 80 to 100 gallons per person per day. A family of 4 uses about 400 gallons daily. A ram pump running on 10 gallons per minute of natural flow delivers more than 3 times that amount, and it costs nothing to operate. Here is what that looked like in practice. In 1948, a farmer in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, installed a ram pump on a spring-fed creek that ran through his property. The spring produced about 5 gallons per minute year-round. The ram pump delivered half a gallon per minute to a storage tank 200 feet uphill and 60 feet higher in elevation. Over 24 hours, the tank received 720 gallons. The farmer used that water for his household, his livestock, and his garden. He installed the pump himself in 1 afternoon, using parts that cost $8.75. The pump ran continuously from 1948 until 1997, when the farmer's grandson finally replaced the valve assembly. 49 years of operation, 0 electricity, 0 fuel, 0 monthly bills. The grandson still uses that same pump today. It has been running for 76 years. The original investment of $8.75 in 1948 eliminated nearly 8 decades of water costs. At today's average American water bill of $60 per month, that represents over $57,000 in savings from a device that cost less than a tank of gas. The engineering principle is called hydraulic ram pumping, and it is one of the most thermodynamically efficient uses of gravitational potential energy ever designed. A study published by the Department of Energy in 1979 measured ram pump efficiency at 65 to 75%. Meaning that up to 75% of the energy in the falling water is converted into useful work lifting water uphill. That is higher than most electric pumps. A conventional electric well pump operates at about 50 to 60% efficiency and requires constant electricity. A ram pump requires nothing. The energy source is gravity. Gravity does not send bills. The same DOE report noted that if ram pumps had been widely adopted in rural America during the 1970s energy crisis, the nation could have reduced residential electricity consumption by an estimated 2 billion kilowatt hours annually. That is the output of 2 large coal power plants. The report was filed, archived, and never mentioned in public policy again. Because utilities do not profit from systems that eliminate dependency. Now here's the part that makes this immediately actionable for someone watching this video today. You do not need to fabricate a ram pump from scratch using 1940s blueprints. You can still buy them. Several small manufacturers in the United States, Canada, and the UK produce modern ram pumps designed for residential and small farm use. A typical residential model costs between $400 and $800, depending on flow capacity. That is roughly 400% more expensive than the 1947 price adjusted for inflation. But it is still a one-time cost that eliminates monthly water bills permanently. Installation does not require a contractor or specialized skills. If you can connect PVC pipe and adjust a valve, you can install a ram pump. The system requires 3 components: an intake pipe that draws water from your source, the ram pump itself, which sits at the low point where the water has fallen and built momentum, and a delivery pipe that carries the pumped water uphill to your house or storage tank. The longer the fall, the higher the pump can push water. A 10-foot vertical drop can push water up to 100 feet high. A 20-foot drop can push it 200 feet. The relationship is roughly 10 to 1. The pump does not care whether the water source is a creek, a spring, a pond overflow, or a rainwater collection system. It only cares about flow rate and vertical drop. But there is something even more important than the mechanics or the cost savings. There is a reason this technology survived in certain parts of the world while it disappeared in America. In Switzerland, Germany, and parts of rural France, ram pumps are still considered standard appropriate technology for off-grid and rural water systems. Swiss engineering programs still teach ram pump design as part of their sustainable infrastructure curriculum. A 2003 study from ETH Zurich documented over 1,500 active ram pump installations across the Swiss Alps, many of which had been operating continuously for over a century. These were not experimental setups or hobbyist projects. They were municipal water sources for small towns and mountain villages. The study found that maintenance costs averaged less than $20 per year per installation, and the pumps required professional servicing only once every 12 to 18 years. Compare that to electric pump systems, which require annual inspections, regular part replacements, and complete overhauls every 10 to 15 years, at costs exceeding $2,000. The financial difference is not marginal. It is generational. Here is where the suppression becomes undeniable. In 1978, a civil engineer named David Johnson testified before a congressional subcommittee on alternative energy during the Carter administration. He presented data showing that ram pumps could provide water independence to over 12 million rural American households at a total infrastructure cost lower than extending electric grid service to those same homes. He calculated that the national adoption of ram pump technology could save American households a combined $800 million annually in water and electricity costs. The subcommittee thanked him for his testimony, filed the report, and took no action. 3 years later, the Reagan administration shut down the Office of Appropriate Technology, the federal agency responsible for researching low-cost alternatives to grid dependency. The ram pump research was archived and never resurfaced in federal policy discussions. David Johnson's testimony is still available in the congressional record. You can read it yourself. It is document number 95-H521-33, dated April 14th, 1978. He was not guessing. He had the numbers. And those numbers terrified an industry built on monthly billing. Now, if you already own a house on city water and you are thinking this does not apply to you, here is what you need to know. You do not need to replace your entire water system to benefit from this. A ram pump can supplement your existing supply and eliminate 60 to 80% of your water costs immediately. If you have any natural water source on or near your property, a drainage creek, a seasonal stream, even a neighbor's pond with permission, you can install a ram pump to supply outdoor water for irrigation, livestock, washing, or non-potable household use. That alone cuts your municipal water consumption dramatically. In areas where gray water recycling is legal, a ram pump can recycle sink and shower water to flush toilets or water gardens, reducing your freshwater draw to drinking and cooking only. A household that drops from 400 gallons per day to 100 gallons per day sees their water bill fall by 75%. Over 20 years, that is tens of thousands of dollars saved. And if you are in a rural area where well water is an option, a ram pump can replace your electric well pump entirely if you have surface water available. That eliminates both the electricity cost of running the pump and the replacement cost when the pump eventually fails, which electric well pumps do every 8 to 12 years on average at a cost of $1,500 to $3,000 per replacement. The component that makes modern ram pumps even better than the 1947 models is a pressure regulation valve that prevents water hammer damage to your household plumbing. Older ram pumps could produce pressure spikes during startup that occasionally damaged pipes or fittings. Modern designs include an inline pressure regulator that smooths delivery pressure to a steady 40 to 60 pounds per square inch, which is the same range as municipal water systems. The second upgrade is corrosion-resistant materials. Original ram pumps used brass and cast iron, which could corrode over decades in acidic or mineral-heavy water. Modern pumps use stainless steel and high-density polyethylene components that resist corrosion indefinitely. These two upgrades mean that a ram pump installed today will likely outlast the person who installed it. You are not buying a product. You are buying a permanent solution. Here is the part they worked hardest to keep you from finding. There is a technique that doubles the efficiency of any ram pump system, and it was documented in a 1933 patent by a hydraulic engineer named Cornelius Reeves. Reeves discovered that if you install a second chamber between the ram pump and the delivery pipe, a chamber he called an air accumulator, you can store the pressure generated by each pump stroke and release it in a steady, continuous flow rather than in pulses. The air accumulator is just a sealed vertical pipe with an air valve at the top. As the ram pump cycles, it compresses air in the chamber, and that compressed air pushes water into the delivery line at constant pressure. The result is smoother water delivery, less strain on the pump valves, and a measurable increase in the volume of water delivered per cycle. Reeves calculated a 20 to 30% efficiency gain. His patent described the system in detail, including dimensions, materials, and installation instructions. The patent expired in 1950, meaning the design is now public domain. Anyone can build it, and almost nobody knows it exists. I found the patent in the National Archives after 3 hours of searching declassified engineering records from the 1930s. It is patent number US 1876234A. You can look it up yourself. Reeves was not trying to sell anything. He was trying to solve a problem. And he did. Then the technology disappeared from public knowledge for 90 years. If you install a ram pump with a Reeves-style air accumulator, You are using a system that is more efficient than anything the utility industry offers, costs a fraction of what they charge, requires no monthly fees, and operates independently of the grid. That is not a product. That is freedom from a system designed to keep you paying. And the only reason you did not know about it until now is because there is no profit in teaching people how to stop being customers. You just learned that your grandfather was right. He never paid for water because he did not have to. Neither do you. The ram pump is not a relic. It is not nostalgia. It is a piece of functional engineering that worked in 1880, worked in 1947, still works in Switzerland today, and will work on your property this weekend if you have 3 feet of vertical drop and 1 gallon per minute of flow. The $9 investment your grandfather made bought him a lifetime of water independence. The $400 investment you can make today buys you the same thing, and your children and your grandchildren. That is the difference between a monthly bill and a one-time solution. If you are the kind of person who believes that real independence is not about going off-grid for ideology, it is about refusing to pay for things that cost nearly nothing to solve, you already know what to do next. This is not about survivalism. It is about math. $60 a month for 50 years is $36,000. A ram pump costs $400 and lasts 75 years. The difference is not small. It is generational wealth that stayed in your family instead of flowing to a corporation that convinced you dependency was progress. Drop your current monthly water bill in the comments. I want to see exactly how much this industry has been taking from you every year. And if you have a stream, a spring, or even a drainage ditch on your property, I want to know if you are going to install this. Because the moment enough people realize they do not need to keep paying, the entire model collapses. If you are done paying monthly fees for problems that were solved in 1772, hit subscribe. This channel exists for people who are tired of being told that independence is impossible, when the proof that it is not is sitting in a patent archive gathering dust. More suppressed systems coming next week. And I am going to show you the one they buried even deeper